Ethan Carter had spent 3 exhausting weeks overseas closing the largest business deal in his company's history. Every late-night meeting, every delayed flight, and every sleepless hour had one purpose in his mind: securing a stable future for the family he loved. More than anything, he wanted to return home to his pregnant wife, Lily, who was 7 months along with their first child. Throughout the trip, they had spoken every evening, though the calls had become strangely shorter. Lily insisted she was simply tired, blaming the pregnancy. Ethan accepted her explanation, unaware that she was carefully hiding the pain she endured inside the mansion every single day. The Carter estate stood like a palace on the edge of the city, admired by everyone who passed its towering gates. To outsiders, it looked like the perfect home for the city's most respected family. But inside those polished marble walls, appearances often concealed uncomfortable truths. Since Ethan's father had passed away years earlier, his mother, Margaret Carter, had ruled the household with absolute authority. Elegant, intelligent, and fiercely proud of the Carter name, Margaret believed that wealth determined a person's worth. Lily had entered the family from a modest background. She was a talented elementary school teacher before marrying Ethan, and although Ethan loved her deeply, Margaret had never accepted her as worthy of carrying the Carter name. At first, Margaret disguised her dislike behind polite smiles and carefully chosen words. But once Ethan left for his business trip, the mask slowly disappeared. Every morning, Lily woke before sunrise despite her growing pregnancy. Margaret insisted that a proper daughter-in-law earns her place. The house already employed a full staff of cooks, cleaners, and gardeners, yet Margaret ordered Lily to supervise every room personally. If a vase held a speck of dust or a flower arrangement wasn't perfectly centered, Margaret would criticize her endlessly. "You may have fooled my son," Margaret would say coldly, "but you'll never fool me. You're only here because of his fortune." Lily never answered back. She believed that arguing would only create more tension for Ethan when he returned. She loved him too much to make him choose between his wife and his mother. Instead, she swallowed every insult with a quiet smile, even as the stress weighed heavily on her heart. One afternoon, while carrying a stack of folded blankets upstairs, Lily felt a sharp pain across her stomach. She froze halfway up the staircase, gripping the railing as tears filled her eyes. Margaret happened to walk by. Instead of helping, she frowned. "Pregnancy isn't an illness," she said. "Stop acting dramatic." Lily forced herself to continue climbing. That night, alone in her bedroom, she gently rubbed her stomach. "I'm sorry, little one," she whispered through tears. "Mommy promises everything will be okay." The baby kicked softly, almost as if responding. Those tiny movements became Lily's greatest source of strength. Meanwhile, Ethan noticed subtle changes during their video calls. Lily smiled less. Dark circles had appeared beneath her eyes. She always claimed she had just finished reading or organizing the nursery. Whenever Ethan asked if his mother was treating her well, Lily immediately answered yes. She refused to lie convincingly, but she also refused to tell the truth. Margaret often stood just outside the bedroom whenever Lily called Ethan, ensuring she couldn't speak freely. Days later, Ethan surprised everyone by finishing his negotiations earlier than expected. Instead of informing his family, he decided to fly home one day ahead of schedule. He imagined Lily's delighted expression when he walked through the front door carrying flowers and tiny baby clothes he had purchased abroad. His plane landed shortly after noon. Ignoring the chauffeur, Ethan rented a car himself, wanting the surprise to remain secret. As he drove toward the mansion, excitement filled his heart. He rehearsed the moment over and over. He would sneak inside. Cover Lily's eyes. Hand her the tiny knitted baby sweater. Maybe they would laugh. Maybe she'd cry. He smiled the entire drive. When he arrived, something immediately felt wrong. Usually the staff greeted him warmly the moment the gates opened. Today, the security guards looked nervous. The head butler hurried toward him. "Mr. Carter, we weren't expecting you today." "I know," Ethan replied cheerfully. "Where's Lily?" The butler hesitated. "I believe she's inside." His strange expression planted the first seed of concern. Ethan quietly entered through the side entrance instead of the grand front hall. The mansion seemed unusually silent. No music. No conversation. Only distant voices echoing from the formal dining room. As Ethan walked closer, he recognized his mother's unmistakable tone. Sharp. Demanding. Unforgiving. He slowed his steps. The dining room doors were slightly open. From where he stood, he could see only part of the room. Lily stood beside the long dining table, her hands trembling as she balanced a heavy silver serving tray despite her swollen belly. Margaret sat comfortably at the head of the table with several wealthy guests enjoying afternoon tea. "So this," Margaret announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, "is what happens when people from ordinary families marry into wealth." Several guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Lily lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry if I've done something wrong." Margaret laughed softly. "You've done many things wrong." She pointed toward a tiny drop of tea that had landed on the white tablecloth. "Look at that. Careless. Clumsy. Completely lacking refinement." One guest quietly murmured, "Margaret, perhaps that's enough." Margaret ignored her. "No," she continued. "If Lily is going to represent this family, she should learn that carrying a Carter heir doesn't suddenly make her a Carter." Lily's fingers tightened around the tray. Her face had gone pale. She looked exhausted, as though weeks of silent suffering had finally caught up with her. Then Margaret delivered the words that made every servant freeze. "If my son had listened to me, he would have married someone worthy. Instead, he chose a girl who still belongs serving meals rather than sitting at this table." A painful silence filled the room. One servant quietly wiped away tears. Another looked toward the doorway, unaware that Ethan had already arrived. Standing just beyond the partially open doors, Ethan's joyful smile vanished completely. His hands slowly clenched into fists as every piece of the truth finally fell into place. The short phone calls. Lily's tired eyes. The nervous servants. The strange silence in the mansion. He realized that while he had been building a future for his family abroad, the woman he loved had been standing alone, enduring humiliation inside the very home he believed would keep her safe. Without making a sound, Ethan stepped through the doorway. None of the guests noticed him yet. Only the elderly butler, standing in the corner, lifted his eyes, and the expression on his face changed from fear to quiet relief. The moment everyone had unknowingly been approaching had finally arrived.